Hello there, and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. Today, I'd thought I would talk about ladybirds and why I don't think they're a great biocontrol agent for hydroponics and why I've never got on well with them when using them in hydroponics. Now, you can buy ladybirds to use to eat up aphids and other pests in your grow environment, and ladybirds get a great press. Everyone loves ladybirds, they look beautiful. And, it's thought they're voracious consumers of aphids. They eat hundreds of aphids in their lifetime. Now, this depends. So they're a beetle, and so they go through a life cycle that starts off as an egg, then into a larvae that then pupates into an adult. And what you've got to remember is that it's the larvae that do most of the eating of the aphids. So if you're buying ladybirds, you want to be buying the larvae, not the adults. And in North America, you can buy the adults, and they're not as good because they just fly away and they don't eat many aphids. They're more concerned about procreating. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the larvae, if you put them in your crop, you sort of put them in there. They don't do much. You nudge them, come on, let's eat some aphids. And a lot of the time, they just end up rolling over and dying. Don't know what it is about ladybird larvae, but I've never got them to consume aphids in my hydroponic grow rooms. The other thing about the larvae is they're big, and so they can get into filters. Same with the adults. They can block filters and fans and things like this and decompose and rot and things like this. So not great from that perspective. Ladybirds also suffer from sexually transmitted diseases, apparently. And so that can be an issue. There are invasive species of ladybirds that eat other species of ladybird, like the harlequin ladybird in the UK. That was introduced into a number of countries as a biocontrol agent, and then found to be, as well as being a easy species to culture, was also a species that ate other ladybirds and so destroyed native populations. So arrived in the UK around 2004 and has moved around the UK, the British Isles since then as well. So found throughout the British Isles, so Ireland and Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And so that's something to consider when it comes to ladybirds. The other thing is that they do have a set amount they can eat. Their life cycle is fairly long for a biocontrol agent. What else can we say about ladybirds? There are better alternatives. So I prefer lacewings. I think they eat more aphids, the larvae. So if you want a similar type of organism, then a lacewing is good. Lacewings will give you a nip every now and again, but they are very good biocontrol agents. The adults do fly away, just like ladybirds. So if you're in a outdoor situation or a greenhouse where you haven't got vents, then that's something to consider. They will fly away eventually. Unlike predatory mites, which will stay in your grow room most of the time, and often these are better. Now, there are ways to keep them alive as well, mites, when the aphids have run out. So you can feed them things like pollen and bran and things like this, and flower mites to feed on whilst there's no aphids there, so you can keep a background population. Whereas lacewings and ladybirds, you can't really keep a background population. Once the pest has been consumed, then your biocontrol agent will die out as well. So definitely consider Swirsky mites as an alternative. They'll also eat thrips, whitefly, and spider mites. So that's something I prefer. So let's have a look at lacewings. Let's have a look at some other lists. Parasitoid wasps as well. So parasitic means that predatory means that they eat predators, and parasitoids means that they lay their eggs inside. So a parasite lives inside, and a parasitoid lays its egg inside. So a parasitoid wasp doesn't get into the pest. It just lays its egg in it. And there are a number of different species of parasitoid wasps that will kill aphids. Aphidius, the Aphidius genus is the most common. And then for whitefly, perhaps the most common is Incarcia formosa, but that's specifically for whitefly, not aphids. So not really an alternative to ladybirds, but definitely look at parasitic wasps because they can lay lots and lots and lots of eggs, thousands of eggs in thousands of aphids, whereas eventually a ladybird, more than a ladybird could eat, for example. And so definitely something to look at there, parasitoids. And then In certain countries, you can get fungi that will attack insects, what are called entomopathic fungi. Certain species are registered in the UK, and you can obviously use insecticides, bioinsecticides, insecticidal soaps as alternatives, or as part of a biocontrol integrated pest management, integrated pest management, IPM strategy. So be interesting to know your thoughts on the effectiveness of ladybirds and ladybird larvae. The other limitation is that there's only a few companies or a couple of companies selling them. They might be imported into the UK, so that the lifespan of them might be limited in storage, whereas in North America, you might have more producers of ladybirds. There are some big producers of ladybirds, and you can buy them in garden centres and things like that, whereas in the UK, you can't do that. And I think ladybirds don't last as long in storage as mites and parasitoid wasps. So, mites will last a long time in the packet, and you can keep them alive by feeding them pollen and things like that. So that's my take on ladybirds and their use in grow rooms. I think they're a bit crap, but and they're expensive because everybody wants them. I suppose they're easy to identify. They're easy to know when they're there and when they're working, when they're alive. Whereas a predatory mite, you struggle to see them, and you might confuse them for two-spotted spider mite or other mites, plant-eating mites. So there's an advantage there for ladybirds, I suppose. Anyway, that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. The pros and the many cons of applying ladybirds in a hydroponic grow room or greenhouse. Thank you very much for listening. If you found this useful, please leave an Apple podcast review. If you're not an Apple, then check out the Utrema website. Even if you are an Apple, check out the Utrema website. Very, very slow day today on sales, B2C, direct-to-consumer sales, because Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has been in the news. And any day that her face is on the news, sales slow down, everyone closes their wallets. Luckily, our business-to-business sales have been very, very buoyant, so we have been busy today. But yeah, Rachel Reeves, she's not good for the hydroponic sector because she closes everyone's wallets when she appears on the headlines of the news. Hopefully she'll get off there and some other bad news story will appear and everyone's wallets will open and they'll start buying fantastic fertilizers, biostimulants, and what else do we make? Biopesticides. All right, that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. Thanks very much for listening. Goodbye.